Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Lindsay Gerhard. I am the Destination Development Manager of Bellingham Whatcom County Tourism, also known as Visit Bellingham, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all here today for our very first tourism education series of 2026. I will do a brief introduction, some housekeeping, and then pass it off to our wonderful esteemed group of panelists, and then at the end we'll have a little bit of time for a Q&A. So here at Bellingham Whatcom County Tourism, our organization is the Destination Marketing Organization, the DMO, for the entire county of Whatcom County. It is our pleasure and our honor to promote all of the wonderful things that happen in this area to visitors from out of town with the intention that they come, spend their time and their money at the great attractions that we have, and then come back. Our mission is to improve the local economy by attracting more visitors who stay longer, spend more time and money in our area, and return. There are a lot of ways that we implement that work throughout our team, and I'm not going to spend too much time on that today, but I would invite you to come learn more about that at our annual meeting known as the Taste of Tourism. We're having this May 27th out at the cruise terminal in Fairhaven. It's a wonderful afternoon. We share with you our annual report, our numbers from 2025, our latest tourism stats, spending data, visitation, as well as our strategic vision for the years coming forward, and the whole area is filled with delicious vendors, delicious food, delicious drinks to get a taste of all the wonderful businesses that support the visitor economy here. So like I mentioned, this is one of our tourism education series. We host 3 events throughout the year, public events where the public is invited to come learn more about what is happening in the tourism in Whatcom County. Our next coming up is focusing on lodging tax and tourism promotion grants. So we will see you hopefully in June at the beautiful Hotel Bellwether, where we'll dig into kind of where the funding comes from to support all of these wonderful tourism promotion grants, the jurisdictions that run them, and the wonderful events that they support. And I am, just to run through our agenda again, this is what we have going for the afternoon. It'll be a stacked day full of wonderful information. So I'd like to just take a quick moment to introduce our panelists that you'll hear from today. First up, we have our President and CEO, Dylan Dean Boyle. Dylan spent about 10 years at the head of Visit Whitefish and before joining our team in 2023, and we are all very lucky that he is here with us in Whatcom County. Next up, we have Lori Troutman, the director of the Border Policy Research Institute located at Western Washington University. Lori has been instrumental for a long time, but especially in the past couple of years as dependence on data has become ever more important, and having that information matters. We have Darby Galligan with us, a senior planner from the city of Bellingham. Darby has a hand in so many things that make this city a beautiful place and a fun and creative place to be. So thank you, Darby, for joining us. Becky Mandelbaum is our PR and communications manager for Visit Bellingham. She works with travel writers, works with media, works with press. She's also a published author with a new book coming out next year in 2027. Home wrecker, keep your eye out for it. And then we have Amber Vinup, our marketing director at Visit Bellingham. Amber's been on the team since 2010, and she also spearheaded the marketing and communications committee for all of the FIFA Fan Zone work that has been happening over the past year. And without further ado, it's my pleasure to pass this off to Dylan Dean Boyle.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Lindsay. It's great to see everyone. Thanks for your time today. Just one other quick note as well. We will be sending out the slides and the additional information, website links and things. So feel free to just be present, take in the information, because we will be sending all of this out to you afterwards. So as Lindsay mentioned, we're really gathered here to talk about the upcoming opportunity that we have in front of us with I'll say it probably twice coming up, the largest sporting event in the world coming to our region. But first, I want to let you know what we are going to be talking about today and what we're not going to be talking about today. So, as Lindsay mentioned, we'll be doing some data sharing, as well as talking about what we are doing locally from a fan zone activation and watch party perspective, where to find travel information and tips on how to communicate to visitors that are coming to Bellingham or traveling through the region. What we're not going to focus on, because this could be an entire day's worth of data and presentations, and trust me, this work is happening. It's just not what we're going to be talking about today. Things like the emergency services work, crisis communication preparedness, and visitor sentiment. I know that's something that we've all been hyper-focused on, particularly in the last year and change, particularly with our friends and neighbors to the north. But again, that's something that we might touch on just barely today, but again, that's a whole other body of work, and we actually have a good amount of data on that as well. So that's what we will and won't be talking about today, but I'm going to start off with a little video.
Celebrate the World Games in Bellingham, Washington, an official Seattle FWC 26 fan zone. Conveniently located between Seattle and Vancouver, you can arrive in Bellingham by plane, bus, car, or train. Stay the night, then get ready to celebrate with hundreds of other fans at watch parties. Enjoy huge screens, local food and drink, activities for all ages, and plenty of match day energy. We're bringing the global celebration to you, Bellingham style.
That gets me excited. How about you guys? My one takeaway for you all today, it just flashed on the screen, bellingham.org/fanzone. You're going to hear more details about what's on that page, but that is where all of the information currently lives and will live for the upcoming World Games for our area. So I'm just going to set the table real briefly and just give you an idea of what the upcoming event is going to look like. So first off, this is billed as the largest sporting event ever staged. And the World Cup, as we know, is typically the largest sporting event anyway, but why is it even bigger? Well, it's spanning across a continent is why. 3 different nations are going to be hosting: Canada, US, and Mexico, across 16 cities. The field is also expanded. There's now 48 teams and 104 matches. So that's why. It's a huge undertaking, and for the United States, an estimated 6 million visitors potentially coming to the U.S. for this. And just an interesting note as well is 65% of visiting fans for these games return to host cities within 5 years. And of course, for us, why does this matter for us? Because we are located strategically between 2 of the host cities, Seattle and Vancouver, right on the primary travel corridor between those 2 host cities. Couple numbers of anticipated economic impact. Again, I just sort of mentioned to you how big of a scope that this tournament is going to be. These numbers don't even truly make sense to me because they're so big, but almost $41 billion in a regional GDP impact and an influx of over $5 billion in tourism spending alone. Lori's going to really dive into this more, but a couple different important things to note just based on what we have seen and kind of the way some of the ticket sales have been going is FIFA's been selling these in phases and with limited releases, but as of April 1st now, the last-minute ticket sales are open outside of the lottery as a first-come, first-serve. I looked yesterday, and some of the tickets are still available for both the host city matches, some of them. So those are the general admission tickets. And I also just want to note, too, that the USA match, which we'll talk about a lot on Juneteenth against Australia in Seattle, is one of the top 20 matches for most requested tickets out of any of the matches. I just mentioned it, but it's on the big red circle on the screen. For us, a match that we're really keyed in on is the U.S.-Australia game on June 19th, and we're going to hear more about some of the local watch parties and activations that are going to be going on around, particularly around that game. I think it's really interesting to note, too, that the host nations of the U.S. and Canada are playing in both Seattle and in Vancouver. These are the Vancouver matches for the group stage. Again, notice the big red circles around those. Those are some of the more highly anticipated games based on those host nations playing. And some of the ticket sales that Lori will share indicates that as well. So for us, we've been working for about 2 years now with the Seattle Sports Commission to become an official fan zone from the Seattle Organizing Committee. When we first went to the first Region Ready meeting a couple years ago, they showed a map of the state of Washington, and Bellingham literally was not on the map. And so thanks to our team, we not only are now on the map, but we are one of 9 official fan zones. And this is a really unique setup that the organizing committee in Seattle has created, because this hasn't been done before, where there's official activations around the state outside of where the games are actually being played. And we are only one of 2 that are north of Seattle on the I-5 corridor, the other one being Everett. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do and don't know in terms of travel forecasting, and particularly from the lodging perspective, before I turn it over to Lori. So a couple things that we have seen are particular to Vancouver, Seattle, and then some local lodging indications as well. From the Vancouver perspective, Airbnb commissioned Deloitte to actually do a study on all of the lodging capability of all of the host cities for the entire tournament. And what they found in Vancouver is that there was a significant shortfall in the number of lodging room nights for the anticipated number of visitors coming in for the games in Vancouver, to the point where that translates to approximately a daily shortfall of over 7,000 unaccommodated fans during this period. So while we don't have numbers that translate exactly to that locally, the Vancouver Sun did pick up on this and actually published an article somewhat recently and actually talked about Whatcom County as a potential option based on this, as well as the sky-high rates that are being charged in the Vancouver area for lodging nights. I find this slide particularly interesting. So this shows the host cities in the United States and shows what their lodging occupancy is pacing at, as well as what the average daily rate for their hotel room nights are. This is all compared to last year. And what we're seeing in this commonality, by the way, Seattle is on the far right for those in the back of the room. What we're seeing is that the cost of hotel rooms is sky high in all of these markets, but occupancy and stay length aren't keeping pace with that compared to last year. So for Seattle, for example, they're pacing about 21% below occupancy, but ADR is up about 31%. Average length of stay is down about 4%. And that's a pretty commonality across all of those host cities. So again, just a trend that I want to share with you. Here locally, our forecasting data that we have is specific to short-term rentals. So that's booking pacing, that's looking forward. For Whatcom County, we're seeing about a 32% increase in room nights booked compared to 2025, and that's basically for the month of June, which is when the group stage matches and the very beginning of the knockout stage are happening in Seattle and Vancouver. When you take out Bellingham from that data set and you just look at the Whatcom County short-term rental properties, that's pacing 45% above 2025. And the average length of stay is between 3 and 4 nights, which is in line with the patterns for those that are traveling for this type of tournament. So that was kind of the small graph. I just want to make the graph a little larger here and just say, when I look at this trend line, this is a pretty typical leisure travel pattern that we see in Whatcom County, with those increases happening on the weekends. Still, higher occupancy, right? It's our peak season. But you'll notice that those peaks are happening during those kind of weekends. But you'll also notice that the color codes there are actually the group stage matches as well. So it's just interesting to overlay that data. You'll also notice that first big curve as well also coincides with Western's graduation weekend as well. And with that, I'm going to switch slides real quick while Lori Troutman comes up to provide some great cross-border travel data.
Thanks, Dylan. And thanks to everybody for your attention. I'm Lori Troutman. I direct the Border Policy Research Institute, a program at Western Washington University, and we study border policy, mostly here in our region between Canada and the United States, British Columbia and Washington State. It's been a very interesting year, and I'll leave it at that. So what I'm going to talk about today is just about 10 minutes of your time, really focus on the cross-border travel dimensions associated with the World Cup Games. Again, sort of like Dylan did, touching on what we know and what we don't know. I also think about what do we don't know that we don't know, and try not to go there too much, because one of my favorite quotes from a movie is from True Grit, when the man brokering the pony says to the young woman, "Young lady, the world as it is confusing enough. I do not entertain hypotheticals." So I love that quote. So a little bit, this is just sort of re-showing something that Dylan showed, but through a slightly different comparison. And I want to highlight the group stage games in Vancouver and Seattle side by side, and point out sort of two significant aspects of how these games are structured, which really can feed into a lot of cross-border travel. One, of course, is the alternating nature of most of the games. I think all but 2 games are alternating between Vancouver and Seattle, which allows people to move back and forth across the border. And the other is the dual nature of a lot of these teams. So I've kind of circled the teams that are playing in both Vancouver and Seattle. We have Australia, Qatar, Egypt, and Belgium. So if you are a super excited FIFA fan, I don't know much about soccer. I'm not a huge fan of soccer, so I don't know what the fans are like, but my impression is they go all for it, right? They like to attend games, they like to attend watch parties. So let's imagine you're coming all the way from Australia and you flew to Vancouver and you're going to catch a game in Vancouver. I think it's pretty reasonable to assume that you might want to pop down to Seattle, even if you don't have tickets for a game, but just to be part of the action. So that's significant, of course, for us here in Bellingham and Whatcom County, because maybe people don't want to make that trip in one day, or they're looking for lodging and they want to avoid staying in the more expensive areas. And of course, this is a great alternative for them. A little bit about what we know. I'm going to jump back to this. About the Vancouver ticket sales, we know that most matches in Vancouver have about 30 to 50% of international buyers for their ticket sales. We know the number one international market for the Vancouver ticket sales already is the United States. And the top selling games after the United States are Australia, Switzerland, Qatar, New Zealand, the UK, and Germany. And so far, we know that the Vancouver matches, about 4,000 tickets have been sold to Washington State residents. Now, on the Seattle side, Seattle has a much higher percentage of domestic and local ticket sales, which makes sense. The United States is a huge country. A lot of people coming to the Seattle games will be coming from within the United States. But our number one international market for sales in the Seattle games is Canada. So a lot of Canadians are going to be coming to Seattle to watch the games. And some of the other top international sales for Vancouver and Seattle that are the same are Australia, Qatar, the UK, Germany, and Switzerland. So again, there's some symmetry there between who wants to come to Seattle and who wants to come to Vancouver, which I think also leads to the potential for increased cross-border travel. We also know that for Seattle, so far, 11,000 tickets have been sold to BC residents. Now, ticket sales don't necessarily, directly translate to event attendance. FIFA tickets can be resold. And again, there's this sort of unknown around how many people are going to move just to be part of the action and just to be sort of tailgating or at watch parties. We can't really capture that number very easily. We do know when we look at advanced air bookings that those are significantly up. So what this is showing in blue is advanced air bookings for the June and July time period. We have Vancouver and then Seattle as well. And in green is that same booking window last year. And this was put together from some colleagues of mine at Intervistas, a consulting company up in Vancouver. So already we see an increase of over 30% in international arrivals at both Seattle and Vancouver. So pretty significant. So what can we expect for cross-border travel through Whatcom County more specifically? I'll start with what we know and then what we don't know. So one thing we do know is summer is already peak travel season for our border crossings. In June and July, we see as many as 800,000 people coming through our land border ports just here into Whatcom County. But overall land border volumes are down 25% last year compared to the previous year. Much of this ascribed to a decrease in Canadian visitation. So this is a little bit of a buffer of our peak travel season. We also know that past border surges associated with events, sporting events, if that's the Blue Jays playing the Mariners in Seattle or Taylor Swift playing anywhere in the region, have produced very lengthy wait times. And I actually just peeked back at the numbers because I was kind of like, what did happen with volumes and wait times during Taylor Swift's concert? And interestingly, the volumes increased a little bit, but the wait times increased a lot because people were trying to get somewhere at the same time. So we may have a little bit of that happening with the World Cup games as well, people trying to get to events or to games. It's sort of less about the overall numbers and more about the timing of when they're trying to cross the border. Another thing we know is that we're going to have a lot of charter buses moving through our ports of entry. Typically, there's around 850 buses per month that cross our border. And we know already that the Qatari group, for example, is originally flying into San Francisco. Then they're flying up to Vancouver, and they've notified the local customs and border protection folks here that they're going to have 55 buses in one day just for that group trying to cross the border. So a lot of movement. Hopefully they'll stop in Whatcom County and fill up on gas. That would be a huge, huge boost for us. So what we don't know, again, I mentioned this already, we don't really know actual attendance beyond the ticket sales. This is going to be a tough one to estimate. Maybe there'll be a little bit more about this later in the program in terms of fan zones and watch parties. We don't know how sticky U.S. travel avoidance will be for this audience. So we know travel by Canadians to the U.S. is down, travel by Europeans is down. But again, if you're an Australian soccer fan who's flown all the way to Vancouver from Australia, is that going to prevent you from popping south of the border or not? We don't know that. My guess is people are sort of less sensitive to some of these issues if they're all about spending a lot of money to get to one of the World Cup games. And there's also, of course, a lot of unknowns around travel accessibility, for example, Qataris who want to come here, travel disruptions. We don't know what's going to be happening in just a couple months. We also don't know how much typical border crossers who are normally crossing this during this time might forego their trip. So we did a survey with the Whatcom Council of Governments this past year, asking people who are crossing the border, do you plan to cross the border during the FIFA World Cup games? And 3/4 of them said, no, I don't plan to participate in these events, whether it's a watch party or a game. And these are just sort of the local regional travelers. So my sense is they know it's going to be busy. They know there's going to be a lot of congestion. They may choose to stay home, which could actually be a good sort of buffer against these border surges. So the challenge with the land border is always that we don't know who is going to cross and when they're going to cross. When you fly on an airplane, the inspection agencies know well before you've even boarded the plane who you are, your information, and when you're going to arrive. And at the land border, we just don't have that sort of advanced information, at least not yet. So how are we preparing? Dylan showed that map in the beginning, which laid out where all of the games are taking place, and that Vancouver and Seattle are sort of the closest host cities. They're also the only host cities that straddle an international border. There's nowhere else where the games are taking place where there's sort of this border issue, and that's made it really challenging to prepare. We have the Seattle host committee and the Vancouver host committee, but we didn't have a committee to deal with what was happening in between the two cities. I mean, the fan zones, of course, have been playing some of that role, but FIFA themselves supposedly were supposed to be filling that gap, and I can tell you they absolutely were not. So in that void, there was a group of regional stakeholders in really sort of Vancouver down to Seattle and here in Whatcom County. We started convening 3 years ago, and we met every other week to talk about what can we do on the border, how can we facilitate cross-border travel. And I'll tell you that our goals started out here, and they were tampered a lot over the last year around what we could actually accomplish. But we still have accomplished quite a bit. So just to give you a little bit of a sense of the border itself and what that looks like and what we can do. So there's a very limited toolbox in how we can accommodate travel at the land border. On the one hand, we have staff. We know that both the Canadian and the U.S. agencies are fully staffing up. U.S. Customs and Border Protection is bringing in, I think, 125 extra officers. So we can know that we'll have enough staff at the border to process people. Infrastructure is very limited. We can't expand physical infrastructure. We can expand processing times with innovation, but that's we'll park that for now. That's for a whole nother conversation. What we can do is collaborate with each other, have good channels of communication, and educate travelers before they cross. There's kind of a saying in the world of border policy that how well the border functions really depends on how prepared travelers are to cross through it. And so I'm going to give you one example of a really, I think, valuable tool that has come out of these stakeholder conversations that I hope is useful to all of you in the room. And that is something called the Know Before You Go platform. This was created out of this biweekly stakeholder group that I mentioned, really here in this region, in partnership with a binational organization called the Future Borders Coalition and Amazon Web Services. And the idea around this is that you can go online and you can put in your passport, you can put in where you're going, if it's Canada, if it's the US, if it's Mexico, and this site will tell you what your entry requirements are, where the border crossings are, a number of really relevant information. And the value of this site is it's vetted by both the US and the Canadian governments. So there was government partners involved in this creation. It won't send people to some .com sort of for-profit website. So it can also spit out the requirements in over 25 languages. There's still a few little glitches in there because it's really just launched in the last couple months. But it's a very, very valuable tool if you are somebody in an industry where you need to communicate to people what they might need to cross the border. And there's also a frequently asked questions section, which I find very valuable. You probably can't see it in the back, but there's a question at the bottom around, hey, if I'm traveling with my child and maybe both parents aren't there, what kind of documentation do I need? Outside of the World Cup games, this is really good information, and it can be really confusing for people to find this on their own. And I would venture that there is often visitors who just give up in trying to cross the border because it seems too confusing or too potentially risky if they don't know what they need. So a very valuable tool that I think will be useful not just during the games, but long after the games have come and gone. So finally, I'll just wrap it up with a couple opportunities for our region. Obviously, we want to provide a great visitor experience for this concept of this two-nation vacation. If you're coming to Vancouver, why not come to Seattle again? And hey, why not stop in Bellingham or Whatcom County on your way? This is becoming a harder thing to sell because the border is becoming a trickier thing to deal with. But again, I think if we can provide the information people need, they feel more confident about taking that trip. It's a very good thing. FIFA has also been a really good opportunity for us to strengthen and renew our regional connections, again, with the eye to having these sort of longer-term benefits for the region on both sides of the border. This is a really good time for us to work with our Canadian neighbors to say, if we work together on this, we will both benefit. We have to sort of approach collaboration through this way, and I think it's very important for tourism, but also for business investment and transportation. And finally, just to reiterate, educating travelers to know before they go can reduce delays for them, can free up capacity, and really ensure a better visitor experience now and in the future. Because when I first started thinking about FIFA and I was thinking about Taylor Swift concerts and the last thing we want is for people to get stuck at the border for 3 hours and miss this event or this activity that they paid a lot of money for. They'll never do it again, right? We want them to come here. We want them to cross the border or at least come north if they're in Seattle and go home and say, oh, that was easy traveling. Everything went smoothly. And I recommend, doing it to my family and friends. So that's it for me. I'll hand it back over. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. That was great. Such good information. Hi, I'm Darby Galligan. I'm with the City of Bellingham, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how the city is preparing to invite people to celebrate. All these people that are going to be coming through, how are we going to capture them and give them a good experience here? So originally, let's see. There we are. Originally, the city, like many of us, we were so excited about the fan zone opportunity, started planning several large watch parties at the waterfront, thinking we're going to have 6 huge parties. It's going to be massive. And as that investigation kept going and looking at the numbers for that, looking at our budget situation, and also looking at some of the uncertainty around fan visits, it was like, okay, we need to come up with another approach. And I'm really happy with the approach that we did land on, which was inviting our community to participate. And so through a request for proposals that went out, we came up with a more efficient way to use lodging tax dollars, which is what is paying for this, and vast participation. So the RFP went out last October. And we were asking for a number of tracks. One was, were there places that had existing infrastructure that would want to host those larger watch parties, maybe scaled down from 10,000 people to 1,000 people. The second track was designated fan zone venues, so bars, restaurants, and other locations that could be welcoming places for people to come watch the games. Track 3, we collaborated with the Downtown Bellingham Partnership on a business readiness component, so things like storefront improvements, spilling out into the sidewalk, and making sure that our downtown was visitor ready. And then the 4th track of soccer-related activation. So I'll go through those quickly and tell you how that kind of played out. So for the watch parties, there were 2 successful applicants for that. One was Trackside, and they're going to be hosting 6 games. They're happening all throughout the week in different times from noon to 7 p.m. They'll be hosting Team USA's opening rounds June 12th and 19th and 25th, and then Seattle's second rounds July 1st, and then that final game on July 19th. And then the Den and the Wild Buffalo will be hosting a large watch party on Commercial Street on June 19th. It's that big game that we've been talking about with US versus Australia. And that'll be an all-day event with vendors and music and interactive activities. One thing I do want to point out, this is a little bit of a segue into the next portion of the presentation, is this poster here that was submitted for the application has a lot of things that we're not supposed to do, which is say FIFA, World Cup, or anything related to that. So they're going to talk about how this poster has been amended since the initial application, because we have to be kind of tricky with the FIFA language. So next, for the designated venue track, there ended up being 12 grantees for that. And these are venues that are committed to showing as many games as possible. Some are going to be opening up in hours outside of their normal operating hours. The grants will include supporting rental of AV equipment, giveaways, entertainment, soccer-related activities, and we had a really high expectation for excellent customer service and obviously compliance with all of the different entities. So the opportunity was open to businesses citywide, but about half of them are located in the city center. And I see a couple grantees here. Anybody who's a grantee for a venue? Yeah, quite a handful. So thank you for stepping up and having that offering. And then there's a handful of other venues that are scattered throughout. There's a few in Fairhaven. We had the Bellingham Family YMCA express an interest for more children-oriented activities, and then the Sportsplex is going to be a kind of a home base for venues as well. So yeah, an opportunity for tourists and locals to have a variety of viewing experiences, different times of the day, depending on their needs and their interests. For the soccer-related activations, we have about 6 of them that are going to be happening, and they're really creative. They weren't as directly soccer as we maybe anticipated, but they're kind of riffs on how soccer and all the different recreation and entertainment options in our community can kind of capture the soccer excitement. So the Community Boating Center is going to be doing a kayak soccer tournament with giant inflatable soccer balls on the water. Isn't that cool? KMRE, a local radio station, is going to be doing interviews and a podcast about how soccer is a part of our community and kind of hearing from some voices of people in our community who are in the soccer world. Watka Museum, they do their First Friday activities, but they're going to be focusing on First Friday soccer, so having live tournament screenings, soccer-themed crafts and activities. This is another one that I thought was pretty creative. So the Bellingham Bells, we've got baseball, but they're going to do soccer night at the Bells. So free tickets for youth and adult soccer teams and interactive soccer activities to just get people playing up who are into sports on how they can maybe even get introduced to soccer if that isn't their favorite sport right now. Allied Arts is going to be doing Indigenous-led artist demonstrations, hands-on community art and craft stations, and sidewalk musical performances and activities throughout the month. And then Mallard is going to be doing some different activities, some team-flavored ice cream flavors, and a passport to get people excited about watching the tournament and the games. So what I love about this is that it does involve people who maybe aren't as passionate about the game itself, but are still wanting to get into the spirit of it and find ways that they can participate. So I'm keeping my presentation very short, but the main takeaway is that we want to support tourism and inclusive opportunities. And in addition to the financial support that comes along with the grants, all the grantees are receiving promotion through the city, the port, and the Visit Bellingham channels, and including branding and marketing kits that the next presentation is going to talk about. So this suite is what we're really branding as the Bellingham Fan Zone. So it doesn't mean you can't still participate if you aren't a grantee, but that is the package that we're promoting on the website and that we're kind of directing and making sure that the marketing is unified. So yeah, that's the conclusion of mine. I'd be happy to answer questions and spend some time talking about how the marketing and the branding is going to work. Thanks.
Thank you, Darby. So I'm Amber, I'm the marketing director for Visit Bellingham, and this is Becky, and she is the PR and communications manager for Visit Bellingham, and we both have been part of the marketing and communications committee for the fan zones. First of all, there is a table back there, and it is something that Seattle put together that is out in our community right now. There's a Bellingham loop, and you can basically scan the QR code, go to these locations, check in, do some games. There's some fun soccer games where you move your head around, and then you can also take quiz questions for the Bellingham area, and then you're gaining points as you're doing this. Derek is also doing a pop-up event at the Fairhaven Festival, so you can gain even more points. In the long run, you will win posters, stickers, pins, and then there's a special edition golden ball qualifying you to attend a match game in Seattle. Go claim your prize at the Visitor Center at 904 Potter Street. So I have 3 web pages that we have mainly put the fan zone information on. This is our main page. Please link from your website. That would be great to get people moving around to the fan zone information. This page will give you an overview of fan zone info, links to other fan zone pages, See and Win app info, and upcoming events. Another important page is our visitor fan zone information page. This is overall on the information on the Bellingham location, how to get here, transportation options, plan your visit options, links to travel advisories, travel tips, places to stay for our hotels, and some border crossing information. So this is one of our beefier pages. Events. Okay, so we set this up to be an event web page that you can look at events in many different ways. Whether you just want the watch party events, the larger events, or maybe you want to see an event by the match, so you know soccer and you want to go see where in Bellingham you can watch those. There's also an events by venue, so you can go to like one of your favorite locations, see what they're doing, and then pick to go to those. And then event by date, so it'll be a calendar location for events. And then there's links to other fan zone events and activations. And then we encourage you to all go to our event submission page. The top portion will give you some, just some suggestions before you submit. You add your info for the event. There are some required fields, but we would love for you to fill it out as fully as possible. And then the page to upload an image will appear after hitting submit event on the initial form. And then on our end, we approve your event. You will get a link in your email, and then you can let us know if there's any changes to that event. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Becky for our toolkit.
Thank you, Amber. Yeah, so I am going to walk you through a toolkit that we created. This was a joint effort between Visit Bellingham, Downtown Bellingham Partnership, and City of Bellingham. So we originally created this toolkit for those grant recipients that Darby was referring to, but we wanted to also have a toolkit that anybody in the community could use. So even if you haven't won a grant and you're not an official fan zone activity, you can still refer to this toolkit to know how to talk about your event and how to avoid some of those legal issues like in that poster from the application. And just a quick note that we have QR codes posted up in a few areas that have the whole version of this toolkit. I'm just going to run through an abbreviated version today, but there will also be, I think, a PDF of the whole thing mailed to you afterwards. And there's also a QR code to sign up to our local newsletters that will include links to this and a lot more information. So just if you see a QR code, go for it. So a little overview of what is in the toolkit. We have some first steps, reminders, and helpful links, just an overview of how to get started messaging. We have some guidelines, both for visitors and locals, and contact information for questions. First things first, as Amber said in her overview of the event submission page, we really want you, if you're having an event to celebrate the World Games, you should submit it to our calendar, Visit Bellingham. We get a ton of traffic, so this goes for any event you might be hosting in town if you don't already use our calendar. I know a lot of you do, but it gets a ton of traffic, and we use those event submissions to also populate our newsletters, our media outreach. So it really is like the first step in all of our efforts to help you. We also want to encourage you to submit events if your business is located downtown to Downtown Bellingham Partnership's event page as well. Again, we really want people to be going to those fan zone pages. Like when you go home, just take a look, see what's on there, and then you can also link to that page in any of your materials on your website, in your social media outreach, which brings me to our social tags. Our tag is Bellingham Experience. Downtown Bellingham also has a tag, and City of Bellingham. So if you tag us in your social media, we will engage with you, we will reshare as we can, and it will help you promote your event. We always want our visitors especially to recreate responsibly, so we definitely want people to share that message whenever possible, and also link to our travel advisory page whenever appropriate. And then again, contact us if you have any questions. media@bellingham.org is the best email. The whole marketing team is behind that email, so somebody will always be there to help you. So just going to go over some of our messaging guidelines that we developed. first, again, here we have an overview of what not to say or do. FIFA, all the things we want to say, FIFA, World Cup, and the team names, those are all protected terms, so avoid those at all cost. We know that it's hard, but we also have some handy dandy replacement words that you can use. This is why you see everyone referring to these games as like the world's games, the big, beautiful game, which I think is funny. There's a lot of really creative ways that people are getting around those protected terms, but just make sure that if you are hosting one of the events, you don't call it like your FIFA World Cup bar party or whatever. So yeah, again, these will be in the PDF of the toolkit that goes out. We have some messaging on how to appeal to locals and just an overview of some of the things we really want to reiterate in our messaging and that we encourage you to reiterate in yours. We want people to feel that this is a local experience, that it's something that we're doing in our community, it's our way of celebrating, and we're here together as friends and neighbors. Economic appeal, I mean, these watch parties are free, so you can't get more economically appealing than that. We do want people to obviously support wherever these events are being held, but there is no ticket to get into anything, and all of the watch parties are free. And then belonging and connection. That's hopefully what the point of these games are about, other than making a ton of money for people. But we want people to feel like they are part of something, like locals here in Bellingham are connecting with the larger world. And if you are creating messaging for visitors, some overlap in the messaging there. Again, the economic appeal. If you're coming here to celebrate the world's games, you have free watch parties. You're not going to have these experiences with big price tags. It's also hopefully going to be convenient. If you stay at a hotel somewhere, you can probably walk or bike to any of these events. And again, belonging. When you're here from out of town, you are a Bellinghamster and you're here celebrating with all of us. We also have some social media and email templates. Feel free when you get the toolkit, you can copy and paste any of this content and just tweak it to your business as needed. It's there to help you get started so that you are not using any of those protected terms and you have all the right hashtags and sentiment in there. And again, we want you to engage with us on social media. So this goes for the fan zone events, but it's also for anything. We are always here and we want to know what you're doing and we want to help you amplify your messaging. So all of those tags for Instagram and Facebook are going to be in the toolkit. And yeah, we're excited to see what everyone does. And again, questions, media@bellingham.org. We are here. We do answer our emails, and it will probably be one of us or Justine answering those emails. So yeah, if you have any questions about anything that related to this or otherwise, we're here. Oh. There it is, as promised. So yeah, you can take a moment and take a picture now, or it's also posted, I see, on that table with the Taylor doc. And on your way out. Yeah. All right, I'll move on. I think now we have Lindsay back.
Thank you. So a lot of great information in that toolkit. We really hope you tune in to that. That is one of the ways that our organization is helping provide some support, some business readiness to help all of you prepare for this influx of visitors. And another way that we are doing that, we are really excited to kind of announce that today is our public launch of our Bellingham Experience Ambassador Program. So this is an online training that we have developed over almost about the past year. It's been in development. So we've gotten a lot of stakeholder feedback. We've worked with our our steering committee to see, we heard a request from some of our strategic planning about how hotels and hospitality partners were wanting some more customer service help to familiarize their frontline employees with the tourist attractions and the things that we have here for visitors to do. So we collaborated and we built out a online training. So this is takes about 20 to 30 minutes to complete. It is you can do it on your phone or on your computer. It is an online portal. This is kind of our landing page, and here is a look at what the curriculum includes. It is engaging. There's videos, wonderful videos created from our marketing department, interactive quizzes, and some great overview of all of the top visitor attractions and the impact of tourism in Whatcom County. One of the main goals for this organization for this program, is for people in your staff, like your staff, your volunteers, and you all in this room as well, to feel comfortable making confident recommendations to, be familiar with what things to do here when you're making a recommendation for somebody, whether they're into recreation or arts and culture or looking for something indoors or outdoors. We want you to know that you can find that information here at the Visitor Center or online, and just empower all of those people who are talking to visitors day to day with this confidence and enthusiasm that we all have too. So when you finish that course, you get a certificate that shows you your certificate of completion. It is digital, or you can print it out. You can put it on your LinkedIn. You can put it on your social media to brag about your engagement and this great training that you did. You also get a pin, which some of our staff and volunteers are modeling today, an Ask Me pin to brag about your expertise. And you get access to a Bellingham Experience Ambassador Pass. So if some of you are familiar with our Quest passes that we have, they're free mobile exclusive passes where you check into different locations in town. This is going to be a exclusive only to graduates of this course. You get free access to many attractions and local businesses around town. So when you complete this, you'll get access to this free pass. Then you can go check out a Bellingham Bells game. You can go to the Spark Museum. You can go to the Whatcom Museum, all on us. Through the generosity of these partners too. So no cost to you. You'll be able to have that firsthand experience. And it's also our way of saying thank you for spending your time engaging in that course with us too. So if you're interested, I'm gonna give you another QR code, but we do also have Derek Simoy, our operations manager here in the back, would love to talk to you, me as well, if you're interested in providing this to your staff. But we welcome you to take part in this training, and hopefully it is going to bolster our community with a lot of knowledge before we welcome this influx of visitors. And with that, we're going to move to audience Q&A. So I am going to open the floor. If you have questions, please raise your hand. And we have any questions for any of our panelists up here. And if you guys want to turn on your microphone, you'll be ready to pass. Great question. Sasha asked if this ambassador program is beyond FIFA. I should tell you a little bit more about it. It is. It's very in-depth about all of the activities, small cities, communities. In Whatcom County, we have a World Cup preparedness module in there that will give a lot of information and a lot of things that we shared with you today too, and link back to some of these website pages too. But yeah, we will continue to update that with modules as we go along so that you continue to stay engaged. There'll be many things coming through our community too, so we'll keep updating that too. Thanks for the question. Any other questions? Some of the travel trends that we're seeing in terms of who's booking, we're seeing an increase in families. Families, millennials, and Hispanic Latino travelers are the three demographics that seem to be making advanced plans. So that's something that we think might be influencing the inclination to rent a whole home and like a short-term rental area to have that family. The question was about if events outside of the city of Bellingham can be promoted and how those will be treated.
Yeah, absolutely. We are a countywide organization, and the slide that Amber showed that has this how to submit events is the best way to do that, and we'll send that out again so you have it. And of course, feel free to chat with us as well. Just highly recommend using the toolkit as well with to help tweak any language for those events.
Yeah, so on that event page that we shared, there will be one of the there's like, as Amber was saying, like 5 different ways the events break down, but one of the calendars will be just for events that are not grantee winners, but that are for the game. So if Semiyamu had an event like that, it would go on that calendar. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, a suggestion for landing on alternative terms to how we talk about this together. Becky, you want to take that one?
We've mostly been using the world's games. So that's kind of what our default is. But it is, I mean, if you stick like a soccer emoji in there, it's amazing. People will understand. Yeah.
Yeah, good questions. The City of Blaine preparing to host a watch party of their own and wondering the terminology they can use.
The difference is between the watch party, which are the official watch parties, which are those that are part of the Bellingham fan zone, the official ones. Viewing party would be the term that would be appropriate to use for those events.
Oh, what happens if somebody uses the language? Do you know the dollar amount of the fine offhand?
Let's just say that we have the toolkit for a reason to help protect all of our businesses and our community, because there's obviously a reason that FIFA has trademarked all of those. They are definitely involved in checking this out, and we've been told time and time again through the organizing committee at Seattle, this is where this information came from. So that's why we have the toolkit, and we strongly advise you to use it.
Does anyone on the panel, the question, if you receive broadcasting rights to show any of the games, do you then have access to using the term watch parties or FIFA? How does that relationship work?
So my recommendation would be, if you have the broadcasting rights to it, there should be contact information with that you could ask them specifically about that, because I do know that they're, like, if you applied for the license for that, that's kind of how you would go.
Yeah, I don't know the direct answer to your question. I do know that the broadcast licenses were specifically for those designated official watch party events. And those are the connection that we have made between watch parties and FIFA. So if you are not that, then you're probably going to be in that viewing party. And the broadcast licensing is really just getting the cable subscription that you need to be able to show the game through Fox or Telemundo. So maybe we could talk a little bit more.
Yeah, good question specifically about promoting the games. Can you use the country name?
I'm not sure, but at least on the website so far, we've just been putting the country name, like USA versus Australia, which doesn't include the team.
Or logos.
Yeah, no logos, definitely.
Country name, not team.
Yeah.
So don't use any logos, and our determination of best practices is to reference by the country rather than by the team names. But add a soccer ball emoji.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that's one that we're going to continue to try to provide more data for up until that point and after as well, to see really where we ended up. So I will tell you, just from a baseline perspective, these games are occurring during our peak season, where our hotel averages are anywhere in the 70 to 80-ish%. Now, that's me talking on a very high level aggregate numbers, right? It's going to depend property to property, different locations in town, but that's just kind of where we are baseline-wise, right? And short-term rentals, keep in mind that the vast majority of short-term rentals are in the county, not Bellingham specific, right? So the numbers that I shared were, 32% advanced bookings for short-term rentals, which is Bellingham and Whatcom County, up compared to last year during that whole time period, right? So you're talking about somewhere where we're talking around that 70-80% already. You're incrementally increasing that. So you're talking, right, what's that ceiling going to be? So you're talking about really an incremental increase in lodging, potentially. I want to say potentially, right, in an already busy season. So it's not like this is happening during December. Like, remember, the Taylor Swift effect was so acute because it was December, not July. or June, right? So I would also say too that I don't know if we have the information here, but I do know that the watch parties kind of have an idea, like particularly I'm thinking for you, like the Commercial Street block party. I know there's kind of some ideas of estimates about what could potentially be there on that day.
Yeah, I think they're anticipating around 800 to 1,000 attendees for the downtown watch party. Yeah, maybe a little less at Trackside since there are 6, but they're still kind of planning for around that 500 to 1,000 number.
And I realize that's a far from perfect answer. That's like a mini ball answer to like a big golden ball answer. I get that. We're going to continue to provide some of that pacing data and other information that we get in our local newsletters as we get closer to the games with whatever data that we have to help inform decisions, I'm sure, for you, things like staffing, those types of things. So.
Yeah, that's a great question. Just to repeat it so you could hear it in the back, Airbnb came through with a sponsorship for a lot of the host cities, and the question was about how that and those promotions might kind of affect the lodging role.
Yeah, great question. So to clarify, so Airbnb is one of the official sponsors for all of the fan zones. That came in through the Seattle Host Organizing Committee, and as such, they are providing some support that we are using to reinvest in marketing of the fan zones, promo items, those kind of things. However, from that perspective, there's no obligation, particularly from them. We are very grateful for the sponsorship dollars, but there's no particular obligation for promotional aspect from our end. That's not to say that Airbnb and the organizing committee aren't having that conversation. You know, we've set aside our thank yous and making sure that it's known that they are a sponsor because they provided that funding to those fan zones. But that's kind of what we know right now. And that's, by the way, what we've heard from other standard lodging as well. There hasn't been an indication of significant pickup from what we've been told by local hotels. For us, our standard lodging report, which is where we report hotel occupancy, average daily rate, those things that you see if you do belong to our local newsletter, which you see in our executive summary every month. And if not, as Becky said, make sure you hit the QR code on the table back there. That is all historic data. We aren't provided with what we consider to be accurate enough pacing data to provide out, because any of the forward-looking data that we do receive is lumped in to a larger chunk of the state, and we believe that the other markets we're lumped in don't have the same trends that we do. We've articulated that to CoStar, and we're hopeful in the future that we can acquire some of that. But that's why you only see it for the short-term rental data.
I'll just add to that too, that mostly with short-term rental data, but there's information out there that our booking window is around 45 days in advance, and that's kind of tracking again this year. So we should be approaching that 45 days till the game's coming up soon. So hopefully in the next few weeks we get a lot more illumination on those kind of questions too. Darby.
I almost want to hand it over to Lindsay a little bit, but one thing that we talked about on our committee is we already have a lot of people who are down on the streets doing cleaning and landscaping and kind of end up being de facto ambassadors. So encouraging them to do this training that just launched today to make sure that they're feeling confident and well-versed. Just in general, good practice, but extra helpful for this fan zone. So that will probably be serving some of that role. And then I don't know if Derek wants to talk about the ambassador program, or if you do, Dylan, but for the other ambassadors.
We'll send out that information, learn.bellingham.org. We will obviously have some activations as well this summer from our visitor information center outward, not just from the Potter Street location as well. We do activate that as well.
Yeah, thank you for spending your time with us this afternoon.